this section I'm going to talk about the publishing process in SP. We talked about submitting your abstract for the conference, getting it accepted, how to get accepted, and then writing the paper. And then after you presented the paper, do you want to get it published in a journal? Okay. So publishing in SP journals, we're going to talk a little bit about. There's 7 of them, and I'll describe them a little bit here. But this is the peer review process, okay? It's a little bit more stringent process than actually getting your manuscript accepted or your abstract accepted to go to the conference, okay? But the peer review journals are drilling and completion, there's production operations, reservoir evaluation engineering, economics and management, which is online, okay? There's the SP journal, which is pretty much tailored to research topics. There's JCPT, which just came in the SP fold last year. Okay, 3 years ago. And then there's a new magazine, Oil and Gas Facilities, which I haven't seen that yet.
It actually started in 2012, so
okay.
It's only had a few issues at this point.
Okay. So these are the peer review journals that you could get your manuscript published in. Now, what makes a paper, your paper, a candidate for peer review? Okay, describe that briefly. Its criteria, okay. The relevance to the magazine, okay. Is it innovative, okay. Does it have sufficient technical detail? And the presentation and documentation. Okay, the presentation of the material and the documentation of the material. How it's documented. And then it has to lack commercialism. You know. And you as the author have to be willing to revise it. Okay. Why? When you submit to a peer review journal, this is what happens. Submission with meeting presentation. There's one part, okay? Or you can independently submit it for peer review, okay? It doesn't have to go through the conference. Here's the link for that. So how does peer review work? 2 or more people review your paper. These probably are technical editors or associate editors. They review your paper anonymously. They suggest improvements to you. You revise the paper based on their suggestions, okay? And then you resubmit it, okay? And they only judge whether you have revised it based on their requests. They don't go and look for other things to revise it on. It doesn't go circular, just on those first requests, okay? You can read this statement, but this was a statement that was put out by an executive editor some time back. Anthony Kovacek from Stanford. He was the executive editor for the SP Journal, the research journal, okay? And can you guess who said this? I look for clarity, logical progression, and a good storyline. Who said this? Me. And I feel I can say this because I've been an associate editor for 5 years now, and I've been a technical editor since 2005, and I've read a lot of papers. And these are the papers that get accepted with me, the ones that are clear, they're logical progression of ideas, and they have a good storyline, okay? I said we're not writing a novel, but we have to have a good storyline, good story to piece together all the work we've done, okay? If I can follow it, it's good. Yep. Hold on.
On the point of technical content, if that's very good, but on the other hand, there's lack of clarity and progression and good storyline, but you know that the information is actually very useful and you'd like to see it published. There was a paper I reviewed recently that clearly had this situation. How do you go from there? I mean, you'd like to say to those guys, go and find someone to help you to pull this together properly because they had a lot of difficulty pulling it together.
Yeah.
But obviously that particular paper was not acceptable.
Yeah. I could challenge that and say, okay, if it had a lot of good information in it, how could you tell if it wasn't clear?
You had to search for it.
Yeah.
But someone else could have helped them write it properly.
You might say, from the standpoint of a technical editor, you might say to the author to them that you need to revise this manuscript with the help of others in a certain fashion. You could tell them that in the recommendations. Don't divulge who's saying it.
Sure.
But you tell them, okay, I've declined this paper for this reason. Okay, you may want to resubmit it at another date after you've revised it, but in this form, it's not acceptable. Words like that. Okay. So, clear, good storyline, good logical progression of facts, and techniques of whatever you're doing in that paper to make it a good read. Okay? So summarize, okay, on the summary section. So writing technical papers benefits you, your company, and the industry through the SPE. SPE means journals are a good place for publication, okay? You have a lot of opportunities to publish through the SPE, okay? Everybody in this room has really good ideas. The challenge is for you to get them down on paper in a clear, concise way and communicate that to your audience, okay? I never thought I could be an author, but even people like me can be authors, and you learn how to be an author after a while. My first paper I published in the early 90s, if I look back on that now, is just terrible. It didn't follow the outline at all, but I was amazed that it got past the review committee. You know, keep your focus on non-commercial. Make a point. Okay, write your abstract to attract interest. Write your conclusions first. Can't emphasize this more. The idea is that when you're writing a technical paper, the assumption is you've already done the work, okay? You already know what the conclusions are. You already know what you found out about. So what's the story that you can write that tells other people how you got there? That's the storyline. If you make that clear and have a logical progression, you're going to have a good paper. Consider whether your paper should be peer-reviewed. Your paper that you write doesn't always have to be peer-reviewed. It can go to a conference and that would be the end of it, but still get put in one Petro, okay? If you want to go through the peer review process, that takes a little bit more work on your part. But I would suggest there are a lot of good ideas out there that don't go published just for the reason that the author doesn't want to go through this peer review process, okay? So there is opportunity. Enjoy the writing process. As I mentioned before I started this process, simple process that I've given you this morning, it's known, and it's nothing I've come up with. It's just what I've come up with through experience and understanding what other people are looking for. Also, it's not tailored just to SPE. It's tailored towards your work. You know, I write notes for file on work I've done, intermediate work or intermediate results I've done. I write reports. You can follow the same process in writing at work. This is the power of this. It's not only for SPE, it's also for your work. You know, and how does that translate to that benefiting you? Well, you can decide that. So I think this process actually I'm going to start talking in my company about having the young engineers go through a technical writing course like this. It can be a 1 or 2 day course because there's so much interest generated within my company and other companies, by the way, because people coming up through the ranks, they don't know how to write. And they've got a lot of good ideas, but they don't know how to transmit, don't know how to communicate it. We are an industry now that's transforming from making written documents over to PowerPoint slides, and we're calling those PowerPoint slides our documentation. I would suggest that we still need to be writing reports. We still need to be writing notes for file to transmit information. So enjoy it. It'll get you far in your career. It'll get you a lot farther than you think. Okay. Resources for this. As I mentioned, there's the SP Style Guide, SP Symbols and Metric Standards, materials and links to the author kit. These are also some recommended writing guides. They're for American authors, but there are other good resources out there for British and non-American English. Okay, there's a lot of other good resources. I just picked up a few here. Okay. So, the question is, out of today, what will you write? I'm sure there are a lot of good ideas.